Because I have.
If you already loaded it onto your
I
computer,
haven't.
you loaded it to the computer?
I haven't done anything.
Okay, just leave it in there. Just leave it in there. If I need it, I can.
So you can figure it out.
Yep.
Is that your computer?
All right, let's see. Yeah, it's different.
Okay, ready? All right, great. So, welcome everyone to the, hey Karen. Welcome everyone to the November 18th council meeting. We've already called our meeting to order and we just came out of executive session. And I'm excited that we're going to begin this meeting with the Citizen Hero Award. So, Chief Carlson, please come forward.
Thank you, Brian.
Do we need the chief to talk into the mic because we're streaming?
I can probably talk pretty loud.
Okay, or you can even take the mic off the
That
stand
would
if you
work.
want.
It's for the TV.
It's not for volume, it's for the TV.
I see.
Thank you.
Don't hold it too close to your mouth. Just saying.
On October 22nd, 2019, Miss Margaret Peggy Champney left her residence to work in the garden, take a walk, and perhaps a short hike in the area near the Vale. She lost her cell phone, her jacket, her glasses, and her way. And she spent the next 24 hours alone in the woods. I'd like to invite Mr. Justin Hawker up to stand up with me, please. I know he's uncomfortable with this. Justin heard about Peg missing on the news. He noticed the area that search and rescue had been covering, and he went out early on the morning of the 23rd to cover some more ground. On October 23rd at approximately 8 o'clock in the morning, Justin of Yellow Springs Township found the missing person, Margaret Champney, in the woods near the Vale in the Yellow Springs Township. Peg was exhausted and cold, but now in the care of this concerned person. Mr. Hawker contacted the YSPD and reported that he had found Miss Champney. It took search and rescue personnel approximately 1 hour to locate Justin and Peg. She was unable to move at that time. Miss Champney was transported to the hospital for care. As most of you know, Peg passed away after some time in the hospital and then hospice. Justin, you gave Peg, her family, friends, and this grateful community the chance to say goodbye and I love you to one of our own. Your efforts are truly that of a hero. The Champney family, the Village of Yellow Springs, the Yellow Springs Police Department, the Greene County Sheriff's Office, the Ohio State Patrol, and the Miami Township Fire and Rescue are grateful for the care and compassion that you showed on October 23rd, 2019, and we recognize you as a citizen hero.
All right, thank you, Justin.
Thank you, Justin.
Yep. Thank you, Chief.
Now cry all the way.
All right. And we're now going to move into announcements. Do we have any announcements?
Yes,
Okay.
I have two announcements.
Marianne?
I want to remind people that this Thursday in room A and B at 5 o'clock, the village is sponsoring a second meeting regarding the contamination from the Vernay plant. And this meeting is being sponsored by the village team that consists of environmental commission members, village staff, and some resource people that we have. So it'll be 5 o'clock, room A and B, time to find out more information about what the situation is, what the village is, the next steps that the village would like to see happen, as well as the process with the EPA. I also wanted to let people know that, well, Aaron is here. There's a Survey Monkey that Aaron Sorrell, our consultant for the Comprehensive Land Use Plan update, has put on. It's sustainableyellowsprings.com. So if you go to sustainableyellowsprings.com, there's about a 5-minute or so survey, depending on how much you want to write into it. And we're encouraging everyone in the village to go in and address that survey so we can get more information about what people want to see in the future for the village of Yellow Springs.
Okay. Lisa, did you have something?
Actually, I just wanted to say that Lauren Miller Jacobson has an announcement.
Okay. Thanks, Lauren.
My name's Lauren Miller. To help keep our pets safe, I'm initiating a fundraising for the purchase of cold water pet rescue equipment to better support the Miami Township Fire Rescue. Proper animal cold water rescue equipment will improve the first responders' safety, response time, and ultimately the rescue of our dear pets. Equipment could include ice rescue sled, cold water suits, specialized reach pole with a floating loop, and/or a raft. It is not by chance that us humans can benefit from the same equipment. I pledged the first $250 towards this effort in loving memory of my own dog, Zoe, who was about almost 100 pounds, and she fell through the ice on a lake, and it was tragic. Fortunately, she was rescued. Checks should be made out to the Miami Township Firefighters Association. It's a 501c3 organization. Please make note on your check that it's for the ice or cold water pet rescue, and then send your donations to the Miami Township Fire Rescue. There'll be information out in the community about this fundraising event. Recently, we had a second in the last 12-month calendar rescue in a body of water in which our first responders had to go out and rescue a dog. The first time, it was my son, who's a first responder, and I know that he did not have a dry suit or a cold water suit, and he got pretty cold. I'd hate to think that more of our first responders have to go through that as well. So I hope that you'll encourage other people, or including yourselves, will make a donation for this cause. Thank you.
All right, thanks a lot. I have a few quick ones. First of all, I wanted to highlight, and we'll be talking about this on the agenda, but that the Temporary Transportation Project Survey does close on November 23rd. And we'll talk more about how to participate in that. I also noticed that the yard waste bags are going to be picked up on November 30th. So if you're getting those leaves together, make sure to get those out. I wanted to congratulate Mary Ann and Lisa on the recent election. Welcome back. And I also wanted to mention that I had the privilege to read a proclamation honoring the service of Reverend Dwight Smith from Central Chapel AME. There was a celebration for him on Sunday, yesterday, and it's very inspiring. But I also wanted to welcome the new Reverend Mornay Mayer, who's from South Africa, really vital and excited, and he's going to be a great addition to the community. So, and then finally, I wanted to mention that under Mary Ann's behest, but I'm sure it will be appreciated by everyone, moving forward, we are going to be strict about the 3-minute time limit. When we hit 3 minutes, you are done. Even put the gavel up here, which I've never had to use, but I may start using it. And, I hope that people can capture their thoughts in 3 minutes. We love to have healthy input, but we also need to be mindful about other people speaking and the length of our meetings. So I will be enforcing that moving forward. All right, and with that, we've got the consent agenda. So the consent agenda includes the minutes from our last meeting, as well as several ordinances to clean up zoning issues. Keep in mind that on the second read, these ordinances will be introduced individually at our meeting. So does anyone want to pull anything off of the consent agenda? Okay. If not, then I'll entertain a motion to approve.
I move we approve the consent agenda of the minutes from November 4th and the 8 ordinances.
Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Review of the agenda. Anything that we need to add, change?
I would like to start talking about a special meeting in January to do the debrief of commission effectiveness and talk about 2020 commission agendas, and our schedules all get filled up so early that I don't think it's too soon to start thinking about January meetings.
So you're talking about a council retreat?
You could call it a council retreat, yeah, but
Okay.
those are some specific topics that I
Okay.
think we need to get to.
So we'll talk about that a little bit under new business?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Anything else? Okay,
I
Mary
do
Ann?
have a nomination
Okay,
that,
which we'll
but we
do.
can just do it at the end with
Yep.
the commissions, but please don't let me forget, because it got missed in that meeting I was missing, that
I
I
will-
missed.
Yes, okay, cool.
Thank you.
Anything else? All right, Mary Ann, petitions and communications.
Yes. We had 2 petitions against the temporary traffic project, one by Joan Champy and one by Barbara Cousins. We had a petition from Jeff Rich, who he was against it, but he also had a number of suggestions on different strategies. Then there was a petition from Christopher Joseph requesting that Corey Street speed be increased. Brian, would you say something about the communication that you put in about the culture of health?
Yeah, so some may remember that last year we applied for the Johnson Culture of Health Prize, and we put together a nice coalition with the Senior Center and the Community Foundation, and we made it to the second round. There was interest from Lisa Krieger and also Cindy Seek, who was the project manager and a villager, to reapply this year. And so we wanted to share what that application looked like. It focused a lot on village values, community conversations, and some of the things that we try to do to encourage more collaboration and communication. And if we get to the second round again, as Karen and Sean know, we do a video, which we did last year, and so we'll see what happens.
Okay. And the last communication was from Elise Burns, who's the mayor's clerk of court, and it was a mayor's court report.
Okay. All right, and then I guess we also had the thing about the meeting that you already talked about in there.
Oh, I'm
Yep.
sorry, yes.
Yep.
Josue, you had that little announcement that got on our Facebook page? is
Correct.
it?
Okay, great. Okay, so let's move into legislation, and first of all, we have ordinance 2019-35. Judy, let's do that by title only.
All right, this is approving the 2020 annual appropriations and declaring an emergency, Village of Yellow Springs, Ohio.
Okay, can I get a motion?
I move.
All right, Colleen?
Okay, so this is our ordinance to put the totals together for our 2020 budget. I think we went over, and I appreciate the workshops and all the times that we worked together on it. I hope it has everything in there that council requested and the expenditures that we need to operate for next year. Have any questions?
In the budget, there were some line items that were red. Were those changes that were made from the last?
From two
Tom?
council meetings ago, when we left, when we finished all the appropriations, those were still in red. The last council meeting, we just worked on capital, so we never really went back to it, but it just highlights to stand out to let you know that those changes were put in place from that last meeting.
And I just wanted to clarify under the council commissions line, so that 30,000 incorporates the 15 for our commissions and the 15 for the senior center?
Correct. So you reduced it down to 15 from 25, and then we raised it for the
Okay.
community center.
And I think the logic behind putting it in commissions is, I mean, it could be something that's sort of funneled through the Human Relations Commission, so, okay.
At the request of council, we put together a presentation with colorful charts. So, if you want, we'll get started.
All right.
All right, so this is a, first page here is the list of our revenues. This chart outlines all of our revenue sources. As you can see, the single largest revenue source is charged for services. This is coming from our enterprise funds. That constitutes 56% of our revenue, followed by 24%, which is our local taxes, and that's property taxes and income taxes are in that area. And we'll break out this a bit further in the presentation. So we're looking at total revenues of $13,934,279. Any questions on our revenue sources? Okay. I want to highlight for you this local taxes because we'll get into a little deeper on the local taxes because we're talking about levy renewal and how the levy renewal is directly tied to that contribution to the village's budget. All right, so here's the general fund. These are the revenues for the general fund. Again, this is highlights the impact or the significance of local taxes for our general fund only. So 51% comes from income tax, 27% come from real estate taxes, and then the rest is comes from the kilowatt tax, lodging tax, and a few other smaller items. Any questions on this slide? Okay. All right, now we're going into the expense area by fund. This is for all of our funds. So our total expense is $15,387,063. The majority of that expense, you'll see that it is in the electric operating fund. This is our power distribution services, followed by our general fund, which is our administration and police department, a few other departments like streets and parks, everything else that is not associated with an enterprise. Followed by our sewer operating fund and water operating fund. And then street maintenance and repairs constitute 6% of our overall expense. And then it gets smaller from there on, parks, capital improvements, water capital improvements, sewer capital improvements, and then there's the small various funds, which is sort of the catch-all for a lot of things that are very small, like the economic development is in there, cable TV, a few others. Any questions on this slide? This is all of our expenses. Okay. All right, now we're looking at expenses by category. There's a few questions over the last couple council sessions. Where are we spending our money? So this is where we're spending our money based on the category of the expense. A significant portion goes to contractual services, of which the bulk is our power cost. This is our cost to purchase power from our vendors. Followed by personnel expenses. These are our salaries, wages, benefits. That's all personnel expenses, so that's 28%. You see this line item for transfers, that's 20%, and those are transfers that we make between funds. So we book that as a revenue for the funds, and we also book that as an expense for the funds from where those funds are coming from. And then capital expenditures are 9% of our overall expense at $1,379,500. Any questions on this slide?
Can you give me an example of something else besides the cost for power that's in the contractual services? You said that was the bulk of it, but.
Yes. We get into specifics on what is the contractual expense further down the presentation. So an example of that would
Bless you.
be, okay. All right, here it is. Here's an example of what are contractual expenses. So, electric distribution, that's 3.7 million, rounding. Then we've got some street, maintenance and repairs. This would be the expense of grinding down, streets and doing street repairs. Solid waste collection, this would be our contracted services that we pay to have our waste products delivered to, another processing site for further processing. Administration, we will have our internet service will fall under contractual services, IT services, software subscriptions, all those other services that we need to do our business that are contracted out. Okay? All right. I will go back to that slide. All right. Okay. Any questions on expenses by category?
I think it's important to point out here or later that while we do have a deficit budget, that the categories for capital improvements that we've been saving for is basically, it's my understanding, is what's driving that
The difference,
deficit.
yes,
That we
correct.
this is something we planned for, and now we're in the process of doing.
Correct. Colleen and I are speaking about that. For next year, we want to introduce operating budgets. So what are operating expenses and leaving the capital budget as a separate budget so that when you see this deficit, you know that we're using funds, reserve funds to do capital improvements. And some of those could be covered from operating expense, but it's important to make that distinction that they're not all lumped in together in a single number. But yes, you're correct, Mary Ann. There's a deficit here that's primarily driven by these capital expenditures, investments in our capital. Any questions on this? All right, moving on. So this is a breakdown of our general fund. The Public Safety Department is the single largest expense in this budget at $1,593,695. The next expense is the transfer from the general fund. This transfer is to support departments that do not have a dedicated revenue stream. An example of that would be your streets maintenance or parks. We do not have a dedicated revenue stream for them that comes out of our general funds to support those activities. And that's followed by administration. That's myself and the rest of the administration team. A portion of our salaries is covered in this administrative expense. Another portion is covered by individual enterprises. And then there's council, planning and zoning, cost of mayor. Any questions on this slide? All right, and here are our expenses by enterprise funds. You see that our electric operating fund is the single largest enterprise expenditures at $5,007,180. Within that, there's that 3.7 contractual obligation that we have. This is within the electric fund. So that $5 million figure you see there, that's the total of the following lines that are contractual services, transfers, personnel services, material supplies, miscellaneous, and travel and training expenses. All of those items equal $5,007,000. And the reason I put this in that way is so that you can see within that electric operating fund, what are all those expenditures? All right, and then that's followed by sewer operating fund at $625,210. Solid waste operating fund, $290,500. And our water operating fund at $1,506,695, for a total of $8,429,585. All right, any questions on these expenses? All right, and here is our expense by category of capital. Where are we spending our capital? Where are our capital expenses? A significant portion of that, of $384,500, is going towards electric capital improvement funds. $303,000 are water capital improvements. $288,000 are sewer capital improvements, $206,000 are street maintenance and repairs, $82,500 are parks and recreation, $75,000 facilities, capital improvements, $16,000 are capital equipment fund. These are equipments that we have for general use. Highway, State Highway Maintenance Fund and General Fund has a $9,500 capital improvement expense. Any questions on? Here are personnel expenses. This is our category expense of personnel, and then it's distributed across the different departments. So you'll see that our single largest personnel expense is in public safety, and that's where we have several officers and staff that are all dedicated to that one department, unlike some of our other departments where my cost is shared across administration and other enterprise funds. So is Johnny and other members of the administration. All the employees in the public safety are allocated to the public safety department. So that's $1,507,145. Second largest personnel services expense is the electric distribution at $518,330. Water distribution, $315,000. Administration, $296,713. Sewer collection, $281,992. Street maintenance and repairs, $266,939. Sewer treatment, $207,018. Water treatment, $202,068. Council, $161,038. The Bryan Center, $156,220. Planning and zoning, $115,897. Parks at $68,753. Pool, $60,800. Mayor's office, $32,028. And cable TV at $24,300. For a total of $4,214,388. Any questions? Okay, these are our contractual expenses. We've covered this a bit to your question, Kevin. As you can see, it's electric, street maintenance, solid waste, sewer treatment, administration expense, public safety, the Bryan Center, council, water treatment, sewer collection, water distribution, and all these other smaller contractual expenses. Okay, and that's the end of the big picture presentation.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank
thanks a
you.
lot.
Thank you.
Does council have any questions or comments? Citizens, questions or comments?
We appreciate the effort, appreciate the work.
Thank
Sure.
you.
And do we need to talk about, anyone have any questions about capital stuff? I know we went into that in depth the last time.
I just, seeing it this way, both with using pie chart and doing different categories, I think is very helpful.
Yeah, I guess I'll just end by saying, I want to echo what Mary Ann was highlighting about, we've talked for a couple years now about the need to right-size our funds and invest in capital. Judith Hempfling often commented on the need to spend current tax dollars on, current taxpayers. But I also want to highlight that, the Spectre next year and moving forward is why we are so serious about thinking about opportunities for enhancing our revenue. We've talked a lot about things like paid parking and other opportunities because things will get tighter, especially as we continue to try to deal with crumbling infrastructure for which we get no help from the state or federal government, or virtually no help. Okay, so with that, even though this is the first read, why don't we go ahead and take a vote anyway, Judy? And then we'll have the second read at our next meeting where we'll open the public hearing formally. So Judy, if you could call the roll, please?
Yes, Stokes.
Yes.
Krieger.
Yes.
Sanford.
Yes.
McQueen.
Yes.
House.
Yes. Okay, next up we have Resolution 2019-50, and I'll say read it in by title only because it's a pretty long title.
Yes, thank you, and a pretty long resolution. This is determining the necessity of levying a renewal of an existing 8.4 mil property tax levy in excess of the 10 mil limitation for the purpose of paying for current operating expenses of the village to run for 5 years pursuant to Section 5705.19 as amended, and requesting the county auditor to certify matters in connection therewith.
Okay, can I get a motion?
I move.
Second.
All right. Josue, are you talking about this?
Yes.
Or,
So-
I can't-
Oh, you have
I got
you wanna,
info if you
all right,
want.
you want to go for it?
Judy?
Sure. So this gets immediately taken to the Greene County Auditor, who certifies, and that's done yearly through audits, that we in fact do require the in excess of 10 mil state of Ohio limitation in order to operate as a municipality. Once they've confirmed that that is incorrect, we're not just pocketing it and going out partying, they send a certification back that says, yes, you have permission to move forward to the voters to vote on a levy. So once the certification comes, council will get a resolution which you need to approve to put the measure on the ballot. And the measure will go on the ballot for voters on March 17th.
So I'll add to that. So next year will be the 5th year of this current cycle of a renewal levy. So again, this is not an increase in what you're paying in property taxes, and it does contribute around $750,000 for our operating budget. So you just saw what the budget looks like. So you can imagine what would happen if we cut $750,000 out of the budget. All right, we would have to pull back on capital improvements. We'd have to pull back on other services. And I think it's pretty clear that this is vital, even as we continue to cut costs and look for opportunities to generate revenue. Of course, we want to continue to also work on economic development activities so that we can raise more money through income tax. And that's one of the reasons why we have the Yellow Springs designated Development Corporation, and that's a body that is being formalized. We are going to be very soon a 501c3, and those are some of the activities that are going to be really important to move forward and continue to balance the budget. Other council members have questions or comments? Josue?
The only thing I would add, Brian, I just put that slide back up there so that folks could visualize the contribution of local taxes to the general fund. It makes up 24% of our overall revenues, the local tax as a whole.
Right, right. So as Judy said, this is the first step in getting approval to put this on the ballot. Our intention is to have it on the ballot in March. I believe it's March 16th? 17th? Oh, St. Patrick's Day. So any questions or comments from citizens? All right. If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, thank you. Next up, Resolution 2019-51. Judy, let's read that in full, please.
All right, this is opposing House Bill 242 and its attack on home rule power. Whereas House Bill 242 is an assault on the longstanding doctrine of home rule, Section 3, Article 28 of the Ohio Constitution states that municipalities shall have the authority to exercise all powers of local self-government and to adopt and enforce within their limits such local police, sanitary, and other similar regulations as are not in conflict with general laws. And whereas House Bill 242 is exceptionally overbroad in its protection of pollution, House Bill 242 prevents municipalities from limiting or banning plastic bags, paper bags, straws, plastic utensils, aluminum cans, glass bottles, styrofoam cups, and carry-out food containers. And whereas council sees these continued attempts to selectively remove the villages and other Ohio communities' abilities to address specific challenges such as gun violence and climate change as a subversion of home rule, and whereas council urges Ohio's state government to protect home rule as guaranteed under the Ohio Constitution, and whereas Ohio, according to the Ohio EPA, has only 40 years of disposal capacity from landfills, and we must focus on reducing our waste stream. And whereas plastic, one of the most preferred materials in today's industrial world, is posing serious threat to the environment and consumers' health in many direct and indirect ways. And whereas solid waste disposal and reduction is largely the responsibility of local government, now therefore be it resolved by Council for the Village of Yellow Springs that, Section 1, Council opposes House Bill 242 and calls upon our state legislators and the governor to join our opposition to this attempt to subvert home rule power. Section 2, Council demands that the attacks on home rule power by state legislatures cease and urge our elected officials to protect the constitutional rights of charter municipalities. Section 3, copies of this resolution of support shall be sent to Governor Mike DeWine, Representative Rick Perales, Senator Bob Hackett, and Senators Rob Portman and Sherrod Brown.
Okay, can I get a motion?
I move.
Did I already do that? No, I didn't. Okay.
I move.
Yes. And a second?
Second.
Okay. Marion?
Yes. A couple years ago, Vicki Hennessy, who, if anyone knows her, knows she's a naturalist and very interested in environmental issues, was worried that this kind of bill was going to come to Ohio. Other states have already passed this sort of legislation. Apparently, part of the impetus for this is oil and gas companies who are wanting to diversify their products in the advent of electric cars, so they want to make more plastic. Now this bill has come to the Ohio House, and I heard about it through the Sierra Club. So I got some information about it, gave the information to Judy, who I think did a great job of formulating and reformulating and reformulating this resolution. So this would mean that if Yellow Springs, it would not enable Yellow Springs, for example, to have grocery stores charge a fee for bags, put a ban on bags, any of this sort of thing. So it's really critical to oppose this bill.
Yeah, and I just want to add, we've seen so much degradation of home rule power, even though Republicans are supposed to be about local control. And I think whatever statements we can make to oppose that activity is important. So, any other questions or comments from council? Questions or comments from citizens? All right. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. And the next resolution, 2019-52. Judy, let's also read that in full, please.
All right, this is declaring Saturday, November 30th, 2019, Small Business Saturday in the Village of Yellow Springs. Whereas the Village of Yellow Springs has a vibrant downtown shopping district filled with a diversity of shops, boutiques, galleries, and eateries, and whereas these are locally owned independent businesses that employ our citizens, support our community, and provide for the daily needs and sustenance of the community, and whereas research has shown that every dollar spent at a local business leads to 2 to 4 times the amount of jobs, income, and wealth, tax collections, and charitable contributions than dollars spent outside the community. And whereas the winter holidays constitute the largest volume shopping season of the year and are vital to the success of small businesses, and whereas the Yellow Springs Chamber of Commerce is partnering with local businesses in the Village of Yellow Springs to make the holidays yellow and bright with the Springs Illumination, Storefront Design Contest, and special events like Yellow Friday, Small Business Saturday, Holiday Fest, and many more events identified as Holiday in the Springs, all designed to provide family fun and support our local businesses. Now therefore be it resolved that Section 1, November 30th, 2019, shall be recognized as Small Business Saturday in the Village of Yellow Springs and is intended as a symbolic day to recognize the importance of local independent businesses to the economy of Yellow Springs, and Holiday in the Springs as a celebratory season for village residents, their families, and our guests from near and far.
All right, thank you. Can I get a motion?
I move. Second.
All right. Karen? Oh, sorry, that's Karen. You're up soon, Aaron.
If you're all bored during the meeting, you have, these are the luminary bags in which you will find your crayons, so you can decorate your bags. And on December 24, or December 14th, which is Holiday Fest, we will be placing these along the route from King's Yard all the way down to the Christmas tree down at Limestone. We'll be adding little LED luminaries, so we'll have a little luminary walk down as celebration. But the season really kicks off on November 27th, which is the Wednesday before Thanksgiving, where we ask, where the village is lighting, symbolically lighting the holiday tree that is down at the Jackson Lytle Point. They'll also be lighting the lights downtown. I think that Johnny and the guys are working on a switch, so it's going to all kind of happen at once. Mills Park Hotel will be beautifully lit. We'll have hot cocoa from Dino's Cappuccinos and pretzel bites from Green Canteen. So we invite all the families to come out for that at 6 o'clock on the 27th. Then celebrate with your families or go to the First Presbyterian Church Thanksgiving dinner for Thanksgiving. Yellow Friday and Small Business Saturday are both great days to be shopping downtown with your family. There's lots of events happening. I've got calendars that I will leave I have some left out there. There's also stickers. You all get stickers that you can put on your car for the yellow and bright. We're shaking it up for the holidays, so we are really happy that you all did this and know how important it is to support our downtown shopping district for the holidays.
All right,
So
thank you,
thank you.
Karen. And could you send a digital copy of this so we can put it on the Facebook page? So, yeah, of course, the chamber and our small businesses are important partners with the village, and we want to promote that activity. And yeah, I know with the new switch that we had last year, the illumination was really great. And I'm glad Karen mentioned the community Thanksgiving dinner, because once again, I'll be cooking a turkey. So thanks a lot, and awesome to support our small businesses. Yes.
We are hoping to coordinate a community photograph on December 14th down by the hotel. It was the idea, Molly Lundy's idea. Apparently, it's something that used to happen regularly in the village, that there would be a big community photograph during some event. So we're going to try to recreate that. And so that's definitely a good reason to be at that. Then we'll be leaving King's Yard at about 5, so we'll probably get to the hotel around 5:30 or so.
All right, thanks again, Karen. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right. We have one more resolution, and although I would like to read it in full, it is 3 pages long, so we're not going to do that. So Judy, why don't you read it in by title only, and then I'll explain it.
Okay, this is supporting a prompt and meaningful shift away from fossil fuels in the United States as a necessary cornerstone to any meaningful response to climate change, and further supporting the proposed Energy Innovation and Carbon Dividend Act.
Okay, can I get a motion?
I move.
Second.
So this is a resolution that other municipalities have passed across the country to support the effort to basically support renewable energy and address our severe carbon footprint. So one of the things that's really unique about it with the carbon dividend is that in working on that transition, the users of fossil fuels are taxed up front, and then that money goes as a dividend for lower and middle income folks to cover the costs that they will incur as this transition happens. I think I mentioned last time, and we had someone here about the speaker we had in town who talked about the efforts of the citizens group to basically advocate for the end of fossil fuels and the shift to renewable energy. Ironically, it's actually the speech and debate topic right now, where Galen Seek got first place at the tournament on Saturday.
Way to get in a plug,
So
man.
that's right. So I know all about fossil fuels, and in that case, it's the subsidies. So it's a really great bill. I think it fits our village values, and I think it's a good message for us to support. And we would also be sending this to the legislators, including President Trump. Yes. So,
Is it an actual bill?
yes, it's a bill that's in the House right now and is getting some traction. So, any questions or comments? All right. If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay. That is legislation for the evening. And now, Aaron Sorrell, we do want to hear that special report about our comprehensive land use plan. Thank you for being here tonight.
Well, thank you for having me. Good evening. I'm Aaron Sorrell. Thank you for with Community Planning Insights. Thank you for having me. So we are well on our way to updating the comprehensive land use plan. As you recall, and for the folks who are watching on TV, the plan process is really broken into 4 steps: the project kickoff and initiation, or in the project infrastructure, data gathering and analysis. Will then be drafting the plan, and then moving through revisions and adoption. We've completed the kickoff and the back-end infrastructure part of the process. So we have been working with the Stakeholders Committee, along with Planning Commission, to narrow the scope of what the final comprehensive land use plan is supposed to look like and function. We have stood up the steering committee. The website, which Ms. McQueen had mentioned earlier, sustainableyellowsprings.com, is live. It will eventually, we think, hopefully, transition into the village's comprehensive plan website. Right now, it has all of the existing planning documents as well as the surveys, and it's serving as essentially a record-keeping instrument for this process. So I would encourage everybody who is watching to visit that website. You can sign up for updates. Every time the website is updated, I push out a notice to those who have signed up. It's a good way for feedback. We also then put out our initial survey and had the kickoff meeting on September 25th. We had about 80 participants at that first kickoff meeting. We had 74 survey responses. That was a very high-level survey, sort of hitting at the 30,000-foot level to get people started to think about challenges and, more importantly, the opportunities for the village over the next 5, 10, 15 years. We've completed that section, and so now we've moved on to data gathering and analysis, which isn't the most visible part of the process, but is probably one of the most important parts. We, by meaning we, me, I, have been reviewing all of your plans and your past policies in order to make sure that as we move forward, the text, since I'm the lead writer, the text is coordinated and consistent with those adopted plans and policies. We have a new detailed survey that is online. It just went on live last week. It really focuses both on looking at the current vision and asking if the vision statements in your vision document, as well as your existing land use plan, if those are still reflective of the values of the village, and if not, what should be changed. And then it also digs into future land uses. What are the land use and types of activities that village residents want to see in the future? And that will dovetail directly into how we set up our future land use map, then how it dovetails into your future capital improvement plans, which you have been discussing today. So that's the one survey. It takes, depending on how much feedback you want to give, anywhere between 5 and 25 minutes. If you really want to let us know everything, it can take some time, because like I said, it is pretty detailed and really gets at the heart of the comprehensive plan. The second survey that is online is a map-based survey. So if you have specific areas in the village that you want to comment on, as in that this area should be residential, or this intersection is a problem, or save this green space, don't develop here, you basically just click on the map and then let us know your thoughts. That's being geocoded and then is on the back end of my GIS system that we're working on. We are also doing focus group and key stakeholder interviews. We have had a focus group with Antioch College. Karen and the Chamber have organized one focus group with the downtown businesses, which we got a lot of good feedback from them. We are meeting Wednesday at Cresco with large employers of the village. Tomorrow we're meeting again with the Managers Housing Advisory Board. I am setting up focus groups and one-on-one interviews with local housing developers, those who I think would have a product that fits in with the village's desires for affordable and workforce housing. And also I think they would be a group that would be receptive to working here. So going the gamut or the span from affordable housing to market rate, just to get their impressions of Yellow Springs, the market, what it would take for them to do work here if they're not, just that general tone from the development community. Then we are also meeting with the Yellow Springs School District itself to get their feedback. So and those focus groups serve two reasons. One, it enables us to have a really frank and detailed conversation to get at their needs and desires and how that we can then accommodate their needs going forward to help the village develop and grow. And then also, it's not a public discussion, so they are oftentimes more open in focus groups than they would be in a large auditorium with 80 or 90 people. Our partners, so I'm not the only firm involved in this project. We also have LJB, which are engineers and GIS specialists. They've been working with the village for some time, mainly on your public utilities side. On this project, they have been working to digitize and create a GIS system, an online mapping system for your zoning map. We have the conservation areas mapped, as well as the urban service boundaries, and have been looking at that current delineation of the urban service boundary and whether or not it can or should be expanded. We met with them today. We are also starting to draft a future land use plan, along with, I'll call it a development and annexation priorities plan for public discussion. And what I haven't really come up with a better name for that yet, but your constraint for growth in the village is limited by two things, really. The first are the conservation districts that ring the village, those are intentional growth limitations. Your second is your storm or your sanitary sewer capacity. And so when you think of, and all of these lead towards then a capital improvement plan on how you want, well, not only how, but where you want to make those investments first. And so we're just building the back end infrastructure to have that conversation with the community. MSP Design, they are landscape architects and engineers out of Cincinnati. We work together quite often. I am getting ready to turn them loose after we meet with the Housing Advisory Board tomorrow to do scenarios, various scenarios on the Glass Farm and Kinney site. What we're hearing through all of the surveys and feedback in the focus groups is that the Glass Farm, the residential development side, is really the low-hanging fruit if we want to bring new housing product online. And the thought behind doing the scenarios is to come up with some sketches and designs that vary from low density to high density, because with density comes affordability, and give the public an opportunity to weigh in on sort of broad concepts of what they would like to see there. This would then help the village when at some point in time you issue an RFP for that kind of development. It allows you to narrow the scope of the RFP and immediately sort of call the herd of developers who would be interested versus those who absolutely, would have no interest in what you're looking for. We are also then looking at scenarios and parking options around downtown, from just the easy, let's restripe certain streets to provide angled or perpendicular parking instead of parallel parking, and then also looking at some other areas to be more efficient in combination with other improvements that may be not within the public right-of-way. All of this will culminate with a public meeting to get feedback from the community. We're targeting January. I don't think that we're going to be able to get that in before the holidays in December, but definitely working on the first week or second week of January for the next meeting. We'll need to get with the steering committee and staff to figure out the logistics of that, because the way we work, or the way I like to work, is I want the steering committee to weigh in, and council and the city staff before we ever just open the doors and surprise folks. So our next steps are, like I said, complete the focus groups. We will analyze all of the surveys, the focus group conversations that we have. I will summarize all of those results and give a report at the next steering committee meeting, which will be scheduled after that, the last focus group. And then again, schedule the next round of public input meetings, which will be in January. And then ultimately, as we start to move forward, begin to develop the consensus on the plan topics, the themes within the comprehensive land use plan, and then the organizational structure of working with the planning commission and council on how you want to move forward with a structure of implementation, feedback, and accountability. All of that should be written into the plan.
Questions from council?
Yeah, it sounded like a very, very comprehensive plan. So a lot of the focus group meetings that you mentioned, I was trying to keep up with you. There were a lot
Okay,
of them. But on the website, would that focus group, would that be a link that would be active to list all those out, or is there some other way to find out?
I don't have them listed, but I can list them. That would take 5 minutes for me to put up there who we're meeting with. It says in generalities the types of groups that we're going to have focus groups, that we will convene with focus groups, but not the specific, not as detailed as I laid out, but I can do that. Yeah, I'll do that tonight.
Great. Marion?
You mentioned talking with developers who might be interested in having a part of development here. Were you talking about local or regional, or both?
Mostly local, somewhat regional. So I have reached out to Charlie Sims of Sims Development. I've reached out to the Ober companies. I left a voicemail with the executive director of Home Inc. Today, and then I will be reaching out to the new HBA, Home Builders Association of Dayton, their executive director, to see if there's a way, rather than having a focus group with a lot of developers, poll their membership to see who would be interested in developing in Yellow Springs and what those constraints would be.
And I'd suggest the Miller Valentine Group, at least the nonprofit.
Yeah, I did. I
MVH.
talked to Denise Blake this afternoon as well, from the MVHA, they're the new affordable housing group. Thank you, I forgot about her.
And have you talked to Green Generation
I have
Builder?
not.
They're local.
Okay.
I do have a comment, Aaron, and it's just it's something that's come up recently, and I've been thinking about our assessments. I want to make sure that we're rigorous about tracking the engagements, and what I'm thinking about there is that, I'd like attached to the report, a list of the engagements, the number of attendees, doesn't have to be people's names if it's private.
Yep.
Any feedback from those particular engagements and so forth. And, I think that's one of the things where moving forward, I wanted to mention, we need to make sure that with any kind of assessments that we're doing, that that's part of the deliverable. So I appreciate that. It sounds like you're already on top of it, but I want to make sure that we can easily show someone that 80 people came to this meeting, here's what they talked about, et cetera.
Yes, we're doing that. I knew that accountability and transparency was a key tenet of this process. So at the kickoff meeting, we had not only just the individual surveys, but we had folks do a dotting exercise on these large maps about areas they would like to see developed, conserved, or areas that they had a concern about. I went in and geocoded every one of those along with the appropriate comment that they had. So all of that is a record of those comments.
Great.
As long as I could read it, because it was a lot. But, the one thing that I would hope, and where we do need some help on, is getting traction on the survey links and making sure that is getting out to the general public. It is on the city's website, It's on, the village's website. It's on sustainableyellowsprings.com. It's been posted on the Facebook page as well. But if really, if you could send it out to all of your contacts, your neighbors, your friends, anybody who you think has a comment, a concern, wants to be a part of this process, we really need the community to help with that outreach as well.
Great. Yeah, we'll get it on some of the Facebook groups too, because those are pretty popular in town.
Yeah. I tried, I don't have access to post onto the open discussion one, or it would have been posted there as well.
Yeah, you might not want to. Okay, any other questions or comments? Questions or comments from villagers?
Send
Megan?
me the information, I'll put it in the paper. We still have a newspaper here.
Okay, absolutely.
Don't much anymore.
Okay.
Awesome. Thanks, Megan. Anything else? Yeah, Mitzi, do you want to come up?
I'd just like to, Mitzi Miller. I'd just like to make sure that we're looking at a variety of builders and organizations that might be interested in building here in Yellow Springs. I think as Lisa said, there are a lot of builders here in town. It might be nice to share the wealth with some of them. But I think there has to be transparency in that we utilize and look at various builders within the area.
All right, thanks, Mitzi. All right, Aaron, we appreciate it, and
All right.
keep up the good work.
All right, thank you.
All right. Exciting stuff.
Thank you, Aaron.
Shaping our future.
And
All right.
being completed really quickly, too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, every time you've said what you're gonna do, by a certain point, I'm like, wow, and then you do it, so that's great.
Well, thanks.
Sorry to just jump right in there, Brian.
Hey, no problem. Okay, we are now at citizen concerns. This is the time on the agenda when, if you want to speak about an item that's not on the agenda, we welcome you to come to the mic, speak for no more than 3 minutes, and, yeah. John, and then Lauren.
Hi. So I saw that unfortunately the ballot initiative that was on the November ballot failed, but it failed quite narrowly.
You know that is on the agenda, right? Okay.
All right. So when is that on the agenda? Did I miss it?
Very soon.
Awesome.
all
I will
right.
comment at that time.
Okay, Lauren?
My name's Lauren Miller. I had an idea. Occasionally, I watch the archived meetings of either the council meeting or the planning commission, and occasionally, I don't know what the day is. In fact, most of the time, I don't know what the day of the meeting is. So it occurred to me that I wondered if, with the sign Village of Yellow Springs, below that or above it somewhere, you could put the date of the meeting that is being filmed. And perhaps I'm missing it somewhere else. I've seen it at the end, maybe at the end. Yeah, the end of the video. But that requires somebody to watch the whole thing, and maybe not everybody does. And something that could be probably, utilized, that just is, I discussed this with Lisa, and I had a hard time with her expressing what this idea is, but something that really gives the message of when the meeting is being filmed, when the meeting is taking place. I think that could help a lot of people.
All right.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Lauren. Any other citizen concerns? Okay.
Can I chime in with just a really minor signage thing while we're talking about signage very quickly?
Sure.
Several community members have mentioned that they're confused by this village core values versus the village values. And maybe we should have both, because these are the coracle ones. And I think having the other the village values would be helpful.
Yeah, I think that there was a plan to do that. Yeah, so.
Well, we're
we can-
talking about signage, totally off the
Yeah,
agenda.
but I think that Ruth Ann had talked about doing that, and I agree. It
Thank
would be
you.
great to have our village values up there too. Okay. All right, we're moving into old business then, and first of all, Josue is going to give us an update on the recently completed temporary transportation project.
All right, thank you, Brian. We have successfully completed our temporary initiative on South Walnut and Short Street, and by successfully, I mean that we put it up, we tested, tweaked it a little bit, and we got it working, and we took it down. The initiative was conducted from October 21st through November 9th on South Walnut Street, and through November 11th on Short Street. We're currently collecting feedback from residents via an online survey. A select number of paper surveys have been conducted at the Senior Center. As of Thursday, when we started this report, or when we put this report in the packet, we had 580 responses, and the survey will be available through November 23rd. I also have a presentation to accompany this update on the data that we've gathered so far. I updated the data to reflect the survey responses that were submitted as of this morning. So I'll quickly jump through this presentation. Well, before I start, there are a couple elements of the initiative that we tweaked a little bit. We had initially projected a significant number of increase in parking spaces, but as we were laying out the configuration, we had to make adjustments to improve the flow of parking or pedestrians and vehicles along the site. So an example, we had initially wanted, through the measurements, we could put up to 15 cars on Short Street, but because of having cars too close to the sidewalks and wanting to add additional space for the bicycle parking and making that handicap a little wider, we sacrificed a few parking spots. So Short Street remained at 12 spots, but we gain a few additional parking spaces on South Walnut. For a net gain, if you factor in the unmarked parking spaces that are on the south side of Walnut Street, that was a net gain of 4 parking spaces. If you don't factor in the 7 parking spaces that are unmarked parking spaces on South Walnut, that would be a net gain of 11 parking spaces. So those are hard numbers that we can point to. All right, now we'll jump on the survey results. And this is preliminary. We still are collecting data, and we're still filtering through some of the data. And some of the filtering is we've got some skipped questions, we got some redundancy, so we'll look through the data to see what duplicates or what partial. Maybe someone started it, lost the connection, restarted it again, or it was a duplicate and a refresh, whatever it may be. So today we have 599 survey responses. This is the breakup of how the individual identifies themselves. The vast majority are residents. I'll go to the next slide because it has a few numbers on there. So you'll see there that 80% classify themselves as residents. You see we also have business owners, employees of Yellow Springs Business. We've had students. We had 16 students from Mills Lawn participate in the survey. Parents of students at Mills Lawn, property owners of residential property, likewise for commercial property, and other. And this other category, we left it open. Folks have had the option to classify what their other is, tourist or however they want to classify themselves. Here are key questions that we asked. Has the traffic pattern had a positive impact on the safety at the intersection of Limestone and South Walnut Street? You'll see that there's strong responses are strongly agreed, but we also received some negative feedback that they disagree and strongly disagree. This is a chart, and here are the numbers. And again, this is preliminary. We're still looking through the data to get a better sense of what all the data would, what conclusions we can draw from the data. Question is number 3, how do you feel safer using the crosswalks along South Walnut and Short Street? Larger portion responded no. Here are the numbers. Close to 60% said no, close to 32% said yes. And you see there's a few people skipped that question, just 5, so not a significant impact on the response. Okay. Here's question number 4, do you feel the one-way design on South Walnut Street has made school drop-off safer for children at Mills Lawn School. A slightly higher percentage responded yes, and others responded no. In this data result, we also had folks that responded comment. So we're reading through some of the comments to see what the responses are. So this is a positive. Folks feel that this initiative, that One Way made it safer for drop-off. Question number 7, has the traffic pattern change had a positive impact on parking along South Walnut Street between Short and Limestone? Here you'll see that the largest portion of responses are neither agree nor disagree. So I'll go to the next slide and you see the numbers. Mixed review, mixed responses on agree and strongly agree versus the disagree and strongly disagree. Now this data, and we've also engaged with individuals. Folks call us, or as we're doing our tours of the community, doing our work in the community, the anecdotal feedback that I've gotten has been a very positive response to the initiative. All that positive responses isn't being captured in the data, so we'll reconcile the anecdotal feedback that we're getting with the data that we're getting. Question number 8, has the traffic pattern change had a positive impact on parking along Short Street between Xenia Avenue and South Walnut? This has been the most surprising for me because the anecdotal information has been strongly positive and the data does not reflect that. As you can see, there's a significant portion neither agree nor disagree, and there's large number of folks that disagree or strongly disagree that this had a positive impact. Question number 9, do you support making South Walnut Street one-way from Short Street to Limestone? Strong response in a negative, no. Question number 10, do you support making South Walnut Street right turn only onto Limestone? That's pretty clear there. Over 70% said no. And again, we're still filtering through, we still need to filter through some of the data to see if there's any duplicates. Do you support making South Walnut Street right turn only onto Limestone? Sorry, that's the numbers for that question. And 11, do you support making Short Street one-way from Xenia Avenue to South Walnut? Significant higher responses for no than yes, 55 to 38. We had a 12th question that's a comment section, and it'll take us some time to read through those comments and make sense of all those responses. So this is the preliminary update on the data we've gathered. We've also received data and feedback from 2 local businesses via a survey that they took the initiative to put together. There's also a resident who put together their own survey, and we've gotten that data as well, and their accompanying pictures and letters. So I think we've got a significant amount of input on this initiative. So next step, over the next couple of weeks that we're collecting data and making sense of this data, we'll evaluate all the positives and negatives of the projects and engage the council and the after transportation committee and planning commission on potential projects.
Surprised you didn't mention the school district.
Oh, I'm sorry, the school district, yes, we have, I'm sorry, we engaged the school district on some of these activities, and we'll have future conversations with them how to improve safety for their school children.
All right. Any other questions or comments from council?
I decided I'd reserve most of my comments till after all the data's in. But I will acknowledge, as a resident, and a resident from the south end of town, I was excited to be able to make my little left-right jiggle from Xenia, onto Limestone, then onto Walnut, which was my regular path for quite a long time. So, but it just felt fun to do it. So I look forward to doing it more. But and again, I think some of this is reflected in the data. But again, just as a South End resident, I welcomed the ability to get back to that.
Okay.
I would just
Cannetta?
say, as a parent who sometimes drops her kid off, it seemed like the biggest thing was having the dedicated drop-off. I think that was the most important thing to most people, especially looking at just the preliminary data. I think that was kind of the biggest thing. I thought that there were some quirks still to work out with the crosswalks, especially with there being 2 straight lanes, just having to be mindful of an oncoming car and also the crosswalk being in front of you at the drop-off. That's what I saw as someone going there every day.
So by the way, how many responses did we get in the first hour, did you tell me? Like 100?
Oh, yes, we had over 100 in I'm sorry, in the first day we've got 200 responses.
Okay, so people were definitely waiting to
Yeah.
weigh in.
Yeah.
Okay, any other?
And within that, we've got some that are so close and some partial, so.
Right, yeah,
Trying to
but I
figure
know
out
people
what all
were
those-
sitting at their computer. All
Oh,
right,
yeah.
Karen?
Karen Wintrow, I would just encourage the process to just be folded into the comprehensive plan as opposed to being looked at as a separate project. I mean, we've heard Aaron talk about how closely and how comprehensively they are looking at the village. And to me, that's what needs to happen with the active transportation plan. It needs to be overlaid over all of the other planning that's done. So since this all happens to be happening at the same time, Aaron's moving along very quickly, he's getting a lot of citizen input. It just seems to me the perfect opportunity to meld them both together.
All right, thanks, Karen. Lauren?
Lauren Miller. I'm also interested in the cost of this project, this experiment. And I read somewhere, I can't recall, maybe in the newspaper?
It was.
Yeah,
in the
where
newspaper.
you spoke to some degree, but not in total, what the cost was in terms of staff time and everything. I think that's an important piece of doing an experiment like this, as well as where some of the grant monies that you had to do and how you borrowed equipment from other places and saved money as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Lauren.
Anything else, Laura?
To answer Josue's question about why was Short Street parking maybe not that popular, I really was concerned about the impact of the bumpers going over the curb and how it narrowed the sidewalk for a lot of people, particularly ADA, and that I noticed the same thing was happening on the south end of Walnut because the lawn between the sidewalk and the street narrows there. I guess, I read almost every Facebook post, and the post that made a lot of sense to me was a parent posted, what if people read the rules that parents are supposed to follow when dropping their kids off and actually followed them? There maybe wouldn't be a problem. So I feel like a lot could be done on the school side. And I was a parent once too in the car line, did my time in the car line, and following the school rules would be helpful. I don't really see this as a village problem to solve. Thank you.
Thanks, Laura. Anything else? I'll just make a couple comments. And like Kevin, I'm sure I will have a lot more before we wrap up the review. So I will say, every time I'm downtown, I hear how much people like angled parking, and I'm glad that we're thinking about that with the comprehensive land use plan. Honestly, when I looked at the survey and half the responses were, basically within a day, I think that tells me something about, who was responding online. But it's interesting to me that we learned something that we wouldn't have without trying it out. The second thing is, things like, Laura, what you mentioned about people crossing into the sidewalks, very important to learn that about how you set up anything permanent. But ultimately, I want to compliment the village team again on showing that we can execute a temporary transportation plan, and council's commitment to not doing anything permanently until we get that feedback on any of these projects. Moving forward, things I'm really excited about are things like, potentially getting that transportation alternatives grant to calm traffic on Dayton Street, right? And implement some of the simple aspects of the transportation plan that are in there as well. As Megan's article highlighted with David Ships, who was the project lead, he talked a lot about the fact that, while a lot of the images to get value for our money were some of the bigger things, there's a lot about just simple sidewalk safety kinds of things, bump outs that, I hope our, village will continue to kind of look at, how we prioritize safety, how we think about active transportation, and how we deliver on our complete streets policy, which is to think about all ages, all abilities, all modes, and I think we can all work together. So, thanks a lot. Karen?
I would, even though these are temporary, and I think the temporary nature of this is great, and I hope that you do continue to do more of those, but I think that just because it's a temporary project, the communication has to be almost as deep as if it were a permanent project, because it's impacting businesses, it's impacting people on a day-to-day basis. And so I think that is probably the one thing that could have been a little bit more effective here. So I would just like to encourage better communication about whatever the plans are. Get the chamber involved, we'll get the businesses involved, anything we can do to help.
Thanks, Karen. Yeah, and I think that's a great point to emphasize, because among the many things that we've learned, one of those is how we can continue to improve communications. So, thank you. All right, great. So now we're going to talk about the charter amendments, and I think I will kick this one off. You will have noticed in the packet that there is potential proposed language if we do decide we want to put them on separately in March. So, in terms of what John started to lead off with, and not to steal your thunder, but I was also going to say, the margin was really close.
Very close.
I know that there were quite a few people that voted on principle because they were not happy that they were bundled. And as council has repeatedly said, neither were we. But I think, one of the things that was great was that we advocated at the state and county level to get the voting, inclusionary voting proposals on the ballot. That says a lot to me. I think in my mind, I'm fine with, the fact that we're looking at this again. And so with that, I think one part of the discussion needs to be, so we know that the mayor's term is a separate issue. One of the things that, was proposed by some people was that these should be 3 initiatives as opposed to, when we had discussed it, 2, which was to include votes, well, basically all residents that are 16 years or older, regardless of their citizenship. So I think that's one discussion that we need to have, but I guess even before that, we also need to think about, is this something that we do want to put back on the ballot for March? So.
Well, I would say, given that it was really close vote with the constraints that you already mentioned, I think we should put it back on the ballot. And I also think we should separate the 16-year-old and the non-citizen residents as 2 things, because it seemed like that was something that was important to a lot of people.
Okay.
I would echo the same thing, so that again, the fact that these 2 were bundled was not our intention. I think revisiting the issue, we should make each item just a separate issue. So I think even separating the citizen residency versus 16, 17 separate, I think would be the better way to move forward.
Lisa?
Yeah, I would agree. I think by splitting it into 3 unique issues, we give the community better voice, to express their particular preferences.
All right. Kanata?
I agree. I think that with vote 16, I think it's a little bit of a different conversation to have, and I think that it would be a richer conversation to have both the Vote 16 and the non-citizen resident conversation. I think it would be a much richer conversation separating those two.
Okay. And do we feel like we want to do this in March? So the next election?
Why not?
Yeah, I don't see any reason why not.
Okay. So yeah, so John, you had something to say? Do you want to, or did we already cover it? I agree with all of you.
Put that on the calendar. How about a proclamation?
Okay.
It's on the record.
Any other citizen comments? Okay, yeah, I strongly feel that we should put it on there, and I also, if anyone's keeping track, more and more municipalities are talking about inclusionary voting. Cincinnati just popped up, lots of different municipalities. So I'm glad that people are talking about it, thinking about it. That, to me, was a big part of this, and I also think it's the right thing to do. So if there are no other comments, then I think, Judy, the next step is to bring a resolution, or 3 resolutions, or whatever we need to do.
Ordinances, so you need to.
Or
pass
ordinances, yeah, thank you.
As emergencies, yeah.
Right, and then we'll keep that process rolling. All right, thank you. And our last piece of old business is the RFQ for legal services. Josue?
Thank you, Brian. In your packet, your packet includes an updated draft of the RFQ for solicitor. I've incorporated the changes that were discussed at the last meeting. In addition to those changes, I've amended the timeline for submission. So on the reviewer panel, we've added the mayor as a panel reviewer and the zoning administrator. On the scope of services, we've added the language to include the solicitor taking on the solicitor may serve as the municipal prosecutor and for the mayor's court, as the mayor's court is a non-court of record. The village solicitor may attend pretrial sessions of mayor's court. The village solicitor may prosecute misdemeanors at hearing schedule, including village ordinance violations. The village solicitor may work with the defendants and other attorneys, if applicable, to reach plea bargains and diversion agreements.
Okay, yeah, for me, I think it reflects all the comments we had from last time. And I know it's based on a document that we used last time. Does anyone have any questions or comments?
May I add one more
Oh,
thing?
sorry.
Sorry. I forgot to mention, Brian, that you had asked that we emphasize that we welcome applications from individuals and firms, so I
Right.
changed the language to
I saw
emphasize
that.
that. I think the other relevant question to this is on the evaluation criteria on 4.1, where we've had this requirement where the individual possesses at least 10 years of legal experience with at least 2 years of experience representing government entities similar to Yellow Springs, Ohio. So I think this is where we need your feedback if those number of years covers the intent of what we're looking for.
Well, in our conversations, one thing it seems we've talked about is the criticalness of whomever, or whether firm or individual, having experience with local government. So in some ways, I would maybe at least suggest we consider upping the years of experience representing a governmental entity. I don't have such an opinion about the 10 years total experience, but.
Okay.
Could you add in there or related experience? I'm envisioning the solicitor that we had when I started, well, he had vast experience, but when he started out, he had been a city manager
Yeah.
for a number of years prior to
Yeah.
then going into the legal field, so.
So it could be
So it could be a
representing.
combination of the two.
Yes, or working in local government.
Okay.
Can you talk a little bit about, I'm sorry, having a hard time like connecting with you over there. How this may play out differently as we move towards calling for individuals and firms rather than an individual, I mean, my understanding, as we began to discuss this, is that we were looking more towards an individual rather than a firm. We're already working with a firm, right?
Correct.
And I understand there's history of putting out RFPs to firms that have had, you know, there's a lot of experience with that in the village. So how did we shift towards individuals and firms? And how would that give us anything different than what we have right now?
On the shift, I think the individual and the firm can be the catch-all. I think there were firms that are single practitioner firms, and so you'll get the firm, but get an individual. So that's our way of trying to capture an individual and a firm that may be an individual.
Without precluding a small firm.
A small firm, correct.
The other thing we were talking about was, this combined model of an in-house person with a firm on retainer for some of those special circumstances. And so that was the other thing that we were trying to capture.
Yes,
So
I
this would be-
recall. So we may catch from these responses, both an individual
Correct.
who would be dedicated, as well as firms who could help us with other types of special issues.
Yep.
Correct.
Thank you.
And this conversation was related also to the fee schedule, not requesting a fee schedule up front. We can catch various interested parties and start negotiating with the parties on two different retainer models, one for those outside legal services and the other that Brian mentioned.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions or comments from council?
Yeah.
Mary?
How would it be determined what would fall into this person or firm's role? What would be special? How would that be determined? And, I mean, we're not necessarily asking someone to work 20 hours a week exactly.
Correct.
What,
I think there are a lot of legal services that we get that are part of routine operations, zoning, business development, HR functions. A lot of those can be easily identified. Those are part of a retainer model that are an extension of our day-to-day business. And there are things that require new information, something we don't have, something we're not really working with. An example of that would be maybe, say, negotiating, when we talked about the PACE financing project and the ESIT. So entering into those new models of municipalities doing work may be a new area of work for the legal service provider.
who would make that determination? Would we do that in negotiating with?
I think it's part of the negotiating process. In all these services, we outline a broad range of services that we expect as part of a retainer model, and there may be things that are not captured in that, that will require an additional service. So an example may be, say we need to be representative in some intergovernmental affair, something that it's not a regular course of our work, that may fall outside of the agreement, and that individual or a firm may need to be engaged for something specific.
Yeah, the designated community improvement corporation was a good example of where we needed somebody with expertise. But I think ultimately, this person's got to be able to do 80% of the work.
Correct.
Right? They've got to be able to handle zoning, they've got to be able to write legislation, they've got to be able to do most of that, well, all of that day to day. And we flag that, because we know what we spend most of our, the hours on.
Right, we have good data, we have data on where we spent our, what have been our legal expenses. And the current firm is really good at identifying the billable hours to an issue. So we can separate what's been a billable hour under retainer and what's been outside of the retainer. So we have a pretty good idea of where our legal expenses have been.
Oh, yeah, public records request, sorry, Judy. Didn't want to forget that one.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yes, public records.
Yes, yep.
And that's in there, yes.
Yep. Kevin?
Yeah, and I apologize to Lisa for leaning forward,
Sorry,
but,
play this
but,
game here.
but, I mean, I was leaning because we talked about, in the scope of services, adding the prosecutorial responsibilities, but I wonder if we want to add that to the evaluation criteria as having prosecuting experience. Or, to what degree do we value that experience to be able to still be able to do the work? And I was just looking to see if it was in there. And I
It
didn't see
is, it is mentioned, we added that, that's a possibility.
Right, in terms of the scope of services.
Right,
but
right.
Not in terms of the evaluation criteria.
Yep.
I mean, it doesn't have to be an evaluation criteria. You know, if the experience is there already.
I guess my opinion is at this point, we don't even know if we're moving in that direction, so I
Understood.
wouldn't wanna, I mean, that's my personal opinion.
Right. Well, again, yeah, if scope of services, if it's clearly indicated, and it is, you know, we would think they would offer, the firms would offer someone who's capable
Right.
of doing the work. Okay.
The response date on the cover and in 2.1 don't match, right?
Yeah, I noticed.
Which do you think will go, which are you going with?
The later date.
The January
January.
17th?
Correct.
Great.
Thank you.
Okay, so, questions or comments from citizens? Laura?
Yes, I'd strongly encourage you to think about the employee model. It's a way to control costs a lot better, in my opinion, having seen law directors work. You hire a law director, you give them a budget, they're like any other department head. You say, here's your budget for specialized legal counsel, $30,000 or whatever it is, and that person is responsible to provide those services within that budget. Now, just like any other department head, if they need more, if there's some special thing that comes up, you want to float a sewer bond or something, that takes bond counsel. And it's up to the lawyer as a professional to know where their competency ends and somebody else's competency needs to pick up. It's really not even something, in my opinion, counsel can decide, oh, we need personnel, specialized personnel counsel now. You got to let the lawyer decide whether it's a kind of routine personnel matter or something that's outside the box. So I know those costs have been a concern for the last several years. I think if you do a contracted rate, you know, it's $175 an hour is cheap for lawyers in the Dayton area. You know, I just think you're going to be right back where you started.
All right, thanks, Laura.
Thank
And I
you,
do
Laura.
want to say, we have significantly brought down legal costs the last couple of years, but, you know, that is something we continue to look at, so, but I appreciate that feedback. Okay, so I think it sounds to me like we want to move forward, we're good with the RFQ?
Yes.
Okay,
Okay,
so get it out there.
thank you.
All right, new business. So the council retreat-ish topic, Lisa.
Yeah, I mean, I just have, like my colleagues here, imagine that your commissions have been meeting and going through the commission evaluation process. It's been my experiences have been very interesting. And then I started thinking about, so what's the next, turn of the crank as we have additional, a change in who's sitting up here with us. And then I was looking at future agenda items and thinking, December, as I recall from my last December, those meetings are always really intense, even though we think they might not be, they're always really intense. And through some of the feedback from commission members and my own lived experience, I'm becoming increasingly uncomfortable with the way we smush, it's like a nice medical term there, smush that commission stuff at the very end of the second meeting. So it's like it's always really late, we're always really tired. It's not that, it doesn't feel like the time to get into a rich conversation about what our commissions are doing, in this spirit of ongoing evaluation and improvement. So then I was thinking, well, when are we gonna talk about that again? And then I'm like, oh, the second meeting in December, when it's gonna be 11 at night, and it's like the last time we wanna talk about it. So that's why, and it was probably already on your radar, but I just think it would be really good for us to have, maybe even think about how to rearrange the agenda a little bit so that we have a more meaningful opportunity as a group of council people to talk about commissions through the year, so it's not just like this little throwaway, that we're able to think critically about whether we have the right commissions in place, are we gonna phase some out? So that's what I've been thinking about, that led me to bring this up this evening.
Okay. That's good, and I think, you know, tomorrow we know who our fifth colleague's gonna be, and, you know, it makes sense to me that we do this sooner rather than later, because we do need to make those decisions about who's assigned to what, so,
And what even they are,
Yeah.
the commissions.
right, right. Well, so let's see if we've got some room at the next meeting to maybe talk a little bit more about that.
No.
No?
You're bringing about 5,000 pieces of legislation,
Oh, 'cause we've got
including
all
your
those.
charter stuff, and
Okay,
I just think that's going to eat up time.
okay. All right, well, let's see, but I think one thing I'm hearing is that we do want to move up as early as possible when we, you know, start to convene.
In
as-
January, though,
Yeah,
could be.
at the retreat,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay.
So Judy, have you gotten many responses or any responses from commissions or commission members about the feedback forms that we were discussing?
She wouldn't, because we agreed that we were gonna do them at the commission meetings this month,
Mhm.
and then put together reports, and then bring them back to the next month, and if anybody felt uncomfortable, you know, not stating how they felt in the meeting, they could email on the side. But, you know, they were gonna be group discussions, is what we had agreed, so.
Okay.
I would-
I missed the last HRC meeting, but the one prior to that, I did give folks license if they wanted to send individuals
I
early.
see.
Yeah, that's what I was asking. I didn't know what anyone else did in that regard, but I'm a team player.
Well, you know, I think, maybe you recall that my idea all along was that it would be a survey, but then we kind of got swayed towards this whole facilitated discussion, and, I mean, I've had two, they've both been very interesting.
Yeah, Environmental Commission hasn't done it yet because I've missed 2 meetings. We're going to do that in December.
Okay, so then, yeah, well, it sounds like we'll shoot for early January, and,
Yeah, that would suggest that the soonest we would have a full cohort of feedback would be
mhm.
in late January.
So just to make sure I'm not misunderstanding, did you want an actual retreat, you know, a separate day, not at a meeting, you're talking about? Okay.
Yes.
So do you want me to do the send around dates kind
Yeah,
of thing?
well, I guess after we, you know, hear tomorrow.
Yep.
Tomorrow's the Board of Elections deadline?
Yep.
Okay.
Would it be a benefit that at this retreat, we also do an onboarding and orientation from the administrative side on what projects are in the works? Anything else you want me to cover? There'd be a budget, and we have an approved budget then, and
Well, I was thinking we wanted to start having a retreat early in January, and maybe we might want to think of the different topics.
Yeah. I mean,
that
we,
would want to be in it and prioritize them and have, we'll certainly have more than one, unless we have a whole day retreat.
speaking for myself, I would wonder what Kevin would think, but I mean, we had the best onboarding. But it was just, it wasn't all the council, it was just the new people, and it included all that kind of orientation. And then we went around to all of the different buildings, and the
Right.
sewer plant and the water plant. I mean, it was fantastic and so interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was, I agree. I mean, I
and
thought
we
was
could do
the way
that
to
for
do it.
all of the council as well as part of, it could be also part of the team building
Yeah.
process.
Yeah, let's think more about that. So I at least think on, I mean, not that I disagree, but I guess there are a lot of things we're gonna need to do. And, you know, it seems like it worked pretty well last year to break it up. But I feel like we've got to prioritize. So the first thing is we got to figure out the commissions thing, because that will then dictate, you know, who's assigned to what. And then, of course, we got to look at goals, and we've got to, you know, and that incorporates what's going on from, you know, the admin side. So, yeah. So let's think a little bit more about that, but we should have a discussion on the 4th or the 18th about, you know, at least what retreat part 1 looks like. Okay. Anything else?
Are you saying 4th or the 18th of
December.
January, so 2nd or
Just-
16th?
No, I'm talking, oh, that's right, sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, 2nd or
Okay.
16th, yeah, I wrote the wrong days down. Okay, yeah, just to start thinking about what that's gonna
Okay.
look like. Okay,
Thank you.
yeah, thank you. All right, managers report.
All right. Oh, where's my report then? Okay. All right, I provided an update on the active transportation plan. I'm excited to announce that Johnny pitched the bike access project really well. We were able to secure a $15,000 grant to connect the bike trail down to the skate park and the other playground areas. So we're really excited for that contribution towards what may be a $19,000 project with additional things we've had to add on to it, such as a retaining wall. We'll have a great retaining wall that may also be, the skateboarding kids may use as a ramp as well.
Good.
So
Yeah,
we're
that was
excited.
also a safety, it's a safety issue too.
Correct.
I mean, those stairs are
Yes.
terrible.
Oh, well, that was the driver, that the stairs were falling apart. It was a major concern for us that someone would fall in it, and when the stairs were falling apart and everything around it were falling apart. So it's
Yeah.
something that we needed to address anyway. So it's a good solution to the problem. And we're got additional grant for it. So that grant letter is also included in your packet. We've covered the updated 2020 budget. We will make that PowerPoint and charts available to the council and also to Yellow Springs News. So hopefully that gets covered in the paper. Project updates, mentioned earlier that this bicycle lane was completed. Now it's fully painted, so I hope you had an opportunity to see it or enjoy it. The storm drain at Dane and King Street is still underway. We had some bad cold weather there, and putting down the concrete was an issue, but it should be completed this week. Johnny? We've got the new ramp installation that is going in. We're also expecting that to be done this week. Vernay cleanup, you're all invited to attend the follow-up conversation regarding the Vernay property remediation plan. Meeting's going to take place Thursday, November 21st from 5 to 7 p.m. Here in rooms A and B. We have quite the agenda. We're covering the work of the subcommittee to the Environmental Commission, and the work of the Environmental Commission, the work of the village administration around some of the concerns that we've identified and conversations we've had with EPA and Vernay to address those issues. Then we got some community highlights. We're honored to host another year of the Coats and Boots shopping event. We were joined by 23 exciting kids, very smart kids, from Mills Lawn, and that was on the 14th. Our water department hosted the Ohio Waterworks Association's Fall Conference. Xylem was also a sponsor of this, or supporter. They provided the space and the AV equipment to host this conference. So we've got a good audience. Johnny, you remember the number, the full room? 125 individuals. And our water plant was showcased as improvements in technology and value engineering and water treatment. So thank you, Johnny and crew, for that. And that's my manager's report. I want to transition to finance report to provide an overview on finances. Judy, are you bring that up?
Yes, just speak on and I'll,
Okay.
do you have it separately or do you want
It's
me-
on the USB.
Well, you know what, I'll pick it up. Nope, you
Oh,
give
no,
it
it's
to me
not in there, yeah,
separately.
yep. Okay. You want me to jump in? No, just get through there. Okay.
So this was not in our packet, right?
No, there's not, and we'll send it out a packet. We did this, are the financials up to October, and the next council session includes October, so just wanted to give you those numbers as we near the end of the year. It's taking too long. All right, I'll just cover the high-level figures. Total revenues were at $13,578,175, and our budget, sorry, that was our total estimated revenue. The revenue to date has been $12,206,388. We're well on track with the projected revenues. Our total expenditures were budgeted at $14,978,539, and we have spent today $11,804,249. Sorry, $404,249. So we're meeting our spending threshold, so we're okay on the spending side. We anticipate that we may have a payment issue with a Rumpke contract. Last year, in the current year, may have paid 14 months' worth of bills, so we get a little short, and we may need to make some adjustments. No over expenditure there, it's just a matter of the timing of payments. So we'll provide more information on that at the next council meeting. On our book balances from our accounts, we have $2,148,310 in a U.S. bank. And this is our general account, our payroll account, which tends to be low, it has $13,426. Our store plus investment has $2,504,381. Our Star Ohio investments, $4,511,251. And our Huntington investment is $250,000, and it's accrued $428 in interest. And that one will be expiring at the beginning of 2020, which we would transition into a new investment under our new broker. So that's our cash balances. It will circulate this report.
Okay. Okay. Judy?
The only thing I would have to add is, Brian, if you are interested in working with me on breaking that section 6 into two
Yes.
separate things, that's going to require some crafting, that'd be great.
Sounds good. All right, boards and commissions reports. So Lisa, want to remember your nomination?
Yes, I am thrilled to nominate Amy Wamsley. You may remember Amy as the coordinator of the amazing Pride experience that we had. And she's already been coming to the meetings and contributing greatly. So I move for Amy Wamsley to join Art and Culture Commission.
And I'll second that. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? And that's a good opportunity for me to remind all council members, don't forget that our process is that 2 council members interview any new candidates. And if it cannot be your alternate, then you can recruit somebody else. So Lisa and I did interview Amy. Okay. Mary Ann, did you have any other highlights from board and commission reports? Okay. Lisa, did you want to?
I do.
Yeah.
A member of the Economic Sustainability Commission independently began to request profit and loss information about street fair finances. And, the Economic Sustainability Commission, you'll see in the analysis, is looking for more concrete activities to do, if that is something that is needed. But I didn't feel that I had heard the council at this point wanting individuals or the Commission of Economic Sustainability to analyze festival financial impact and/or specifically the P&L around street fair. But I wanted to bring that question to council because I'm only one person. So I'm wondering what others think.
How would you do that?
Well, the chamber would have to release financial information that this person feels that they could analyze.
But I mean, we assume that there are benefits that the street fair has that
Well,
aren't accrued to
yeah.
the chamber.
Yeah, I mean, my perspective
And losses.
is that
as well.
we've talked about this before fairly frequently. Karen Wintrow, not that long ago, gave a compelling, for me, presentation about the impact that street fair has on our community. And we also know that some members of our community are not favorably disposed to street fair because of the crowds. But we also know that there are both economic and not economic benefits and challenges. We also have talked about some restructuring, not we economic sustainability, but this body has talked about ways that, we should explore revenue for other festivals, the fixed stage, what we should be charging, that sort of thing. Perhaps that is something that we could look into, but it also seems like that could be a staff function. One of the things that I see shifting since we have Josue here is that some of the capacities of the office of the village manager and what's handled by staff has maybe shifted a little bit because of the differences in focus areas and skill sets between, anytime you have a personnel change. So I don't want to have the commission go doing work that is not of value to council at this point.
So, from my perspective, I don't believe council's ever asked for that analysis, and it's not something that I want to be done on behalf of the village or one of our commissions as an extension of council, so. I don't know if anyone else has thoughts?
I agree with you.
Okay,
Thank you.
all right. Anything else, Lisa?
Nope, that's it.
Okay. So, if we're good on board and commission updates, then future agenda items. So as Judy already highlighted, we've got plenty as we wind down our last two meetings. Anything that we want to be thinking about? So we've got the start to talk about the agenda for the council retreat. Anything else?
And so then we need the ordinances for the charter change.
Yep.
Did we make a resolution, or am I dreaming that? I don't think we did. Plug it over here.
I think, I know it seemed like it was well into the year, this year, when we decided on how the council, or excuse me, how the commission budgets were decided, but maybe we could begin that discussion a little earlier in the calendar year.
Sounds good. All right. Anything else? All right, excellent. So I'll entertain a motion to adjourn our regular meeting.
I move that we adjourn our regular meeting.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. And then I will entertain a motion to move back into executive session for the discussion of potential litigation.
I move that we go into executive session to discuss potential litigation.
A second.
Okay. And I guess, do we do a roll call, Judy?
You do.
Okay.
Pausch,
Yes.
McQueen,
Yes.
Stokes.
Yes.
Krieger,
Yes.
Sanford.
Yes.
Okay. Does council, do you guys want a few minute break?
Yeah.
Okay.
I got signatures,
Yes. And Laura.
Oh, wait a minute.
No.